Alright, welcome to episode 8 of Minechat with me, Colin Gallagher, and Rob Newbury. How you doing, Rob?
Hey, hey.
This week we're with Miles MacFarlane. So maybe you can just introduce yourself and what you do and where you are.
Sure. My name is Miles MacFarlane. You might notice my avatar's name is Carlin Mac. That's my son's account. I don't have my own. um, but I'm a grade 8 teacher in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I teach all subjects, which gives me lots of opportunities to do kind of cross-curricular connections. And I've been using Minecraft maybe just about a year and a half, I guess, with my students. And we've started off really simply just building things, and then we started applying it to projects and working with some things in primarily social studies, but trying to do some integration things. But give a bit of context, we're not networked in our school, at least in our Minecraft context. We don't have our machines connected, so everybody's kind of on their own standalone world, and which created some interesting challenges for kind of collaboration. But so the collaboration tend to happen kind of with people gathered around a laptop than inside the world. But that's one thing I haven't really had a chance to play with, is the more social collaborative aspects inside the world. And I'd like to hear what some of this you guys have done too. This is a neat space here.
Yeah, so Rob,
Yeah.
tell us just a quick intro to where we are here.
Yeah, sure. This was the very first server that we had almost 2 years ago. I guess coming up on 2 years it was the first Redstone host server that we got, and originally it was run as a creative server. And we got more and more servers as the time went on, and I ended up passing out servers to some of the students. And this was a server that I gave to a student who's in year 10, and I guess he's been given admin access as well. So he's obviously done quite a bit of work in here. He's completely redesigned this whole thing. I actually have to give him a shout and ask him what's going on in here, because I'll be honest with you, I don't even know. Like, I haven't even looked in the server in a little while. It's been a couple of months, and there's this huge PvP world now, this player versus player world, and he's got a ton of plugins. I'm just seeing what he's got here. Plugins. Plugins. And there are, oh man, there's tons. There's enchanters, there's economy. I guess you can trade, and there's money and all kinds of stuff. There's some anti-cheat stuff. So yeah, very curious as to what this is all about. The other thing that's really interesting is that they've got this whole world set up in different zones. So you'll notice if you walk out of this PvP area towards this PvP area, and when you go through the gate, like as you just walk through this sort of little area, it'll say danger, you're now in the in a dangerous zone, and yeah, it says not this war zone, not the safest place to be.
Uh,
So he's got these set up in a really interesting way.
So Miles, tell us about your networking, just to give a bit of a background. So what kind of limitations do you have with your networking at your school, that you have
Sure.
to
Well,
use your laptops in like individual worlds?
Yeah, our computers, our networks. Sorry, let me back up here. The computers that we have in our school that are supplied are pretty locked down. Our divisional technicians have, justifiably, I guess, have everything kind of locked down in a way that we really can't install apps. But it makes their job easier, and it makes our access to technology pretty predictable. But we were able to acquire 20 laptops through a program called Computers for Schools. And what they do is they take refurbished laptops or computers off corporate lease, and make them available to schools for free. So we were able to get 20 laptops, and they were wide open, and so we were able to install anything we wanted on them. Some of the students were able to bring in their mobile devices, and we set up just a Wi-Fi server. It wasn't online or anything, but they were able to network with their their iPods, and I can't remember, they had a DS, I think, in there, and an iPad. So we're kind of just taking what we have and getting on with it.
And do you
So
have
as far
internet?
as
Do you have internet access?
yeah, we do,
Yeah.
but it's only on a couple of computers in the classroom,
Okay.
and but we like I said we don't have. We're fiddling around with kind of getting connected. Somebody had pointed me to Redstone as
Mm.
a source of a server, but I have one student in particular who's this year has really spent a lot of time trying to get these old laptops networked and connected and playing around with Minecraft EDU, which I've had a copy of for a while but haven't been able to implement just because the computers that we have are so old. They're really quite laggy.
So you're
But
making it work though. So
yeah, we
what
make it
do you
work.
do with your individual Minecraft worlds on each of the computers? Then
Yeah.
what have
Well,
you been doing?
the first project we did was we found some floor plans and architectural drawings of ancient Greek structures as part of our world history.
Hmm.
And one of the other kind of the math outcomes that we have in grade 8 is rate and ratio and scale and proportions. And so we had the students, uh, look at those designs and try to figure out and create it in 3 dimensions in Minecraft. And kind of the one of the fun parts of that I really appreciated was seeing them, doing the math, doing the measuring, calculating out the spaces, and then trying to make it look Greek. Some of the kids had spent a lot of time working with lighting and the presentation element of it. Another student, I've got a little video, I'll post that up and share it with you, who
Hmm.
created a minecart tour around the building that he constructed, and had signposts at different stops to explain the history and the meaning along the way. So that was kind of a neat use of the technologies, creating the
Yeah.
space and then also creating the tour around it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm. So that was kind of an on their own project.
Hmm.
The next one that we did was a little bit more ambitious, and I used to do a project for the Middle Ages where the students did some role playing with a medieval fife, and I was the king, of course, and the students were vying for a chunk of space, and I had for years I'd been using just a map that I had drawn out myself with some different terrain, and so last year we were able to kind of put the kids into this virtual space and this generated terrain, and the some of the outcomes that they had, or some of the criteria they had on the previous assignment, was to find a suitable location for their castle, and where's the village going to be, and then where are there access to resources, and that kind of engagement with the environment became a lot more authentic in the Minecraft space, because I didn't have to create a map, and every kid's working in a different space, and so their solutions had to be very different,
Mm.
um, and more reflective and more thoughtful of kind of the conditions that they were given, and so they put together their own villages and castles, and then shared that out afterwards. So what I was really hoping we'd be able to do is to start in that space, and when we finally get into a networked environment, to share that common space and have different fiefdoms, and then have them kind of do some trading and set up a bit of an economy, and kind of stock the different groups with different materials, so they have to engage in trade, and then kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah. So how did you think it went then with your first kind of foray into the Minecraft world?
Yeah. Well, the kids were really excited, and when they're excited, I'm excited.
Mm, yeah.
Sure.
And I found some of the least engaged, the kids that were the least engaged normally, were the most engaged when we moved into the virtual space.
Mm.
Um, I think part of it has to do with how much control they have over their environment.
Yep.
That in that space, they've got ultimate control in perhaps a world where they don't normally. So socially, it did a lot for them, and then some of them, some of those kids became kind of the resident experts too, because they had such experience with the game.
Right.
when the other kids were struggling, they were the ones that stepped up and were able to take on a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of benefits that way.
Yeah.
I had some of the girls that were a little hesitant at first, that really didn't want anything to do with kind of the game,
Right.
and would rather kind of play with the paper and scissors and things.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't too long before they saw how much progress the other students were making, that they got on and picked up a laptop and started throwing blocks, and
Yeah.
and relied a lot on the other students to kind of teach them and get them going. And it was such a supportive environment. Then they were really able to pull together and help each other out, and came up with some neat things.
Yeah, it's interesting regarding girls and Minecraft. It's just something that they're not exposed to as much as the boys in their free time. So they associate it with something that the boys do, but they
Yeah,
love it once they get into it. It's something that clicks with
Yeah.
them too.
yeah.
It's a universal
Well,
thing.
there's lots of possibilities there that that transcend kind of gender, and you can make it whatever you want it to be. So whatever your interest is, that's what you can do.
Yeah, and we were talking about in episode 7 about the fine line between using a game in education, but then risking making it seem like a chore. So like they might use Minecraft at home and love it, but then get into school and you say, right, you have to do this. This is your summative assessment or whatever.
Right.
You have to do this. This is the project you're going to do, and then
Yeah.
sometimes
And I didn't find that the kids were really eager to get on with it.
Yeah.
They were showing up early and staying in at lunchtime,
Yeah.
not wanting to go home.
Yeah.
So that's that was
just wait
that was a
until
real
you get your
positive thing
just
for-
wait until
for
you
us.
get
They didn't translate the required elements of the project to work.
Yeah.
It was just kind of all play.
Just wait until you get your server and they'll be on it 24/7 and they're
Oh yeah.
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 They'll do things like
Yeah.
this to it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your options then going down the line. So you think that like Redstone host will obviously give you a free server, but
Yeah.
but that could be like a that doesn't mean that
Mhm.
you need to have total access at school. That means that your students
Right.
could then obviously work from home. So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the more I think of it, we use Edmodo a lot, and the kids are blogging, and so we've got that kind of online
Mm.
element, the online part of our classroom. You kind of feel like you break down the physical walls a bit, and you extend out into that virtual space.
Yeah.
And I can see Minecraft. I guess my dream when I first saw it would be, kind of start the year with a flat world, and then end of the year with the entire grade 8 curriculum represented in some way. Have your
Yeah, I see what you mean.
fractions area, your math area,
Yep.
and then throughout the year to be able to have field trips with other schools,
Right.
to have the students give a tour and say, this is where we learned, or how we demonstrated our understanding of fractions or percent. Yeah, having kids kind of create during the course of the year for each subject you're doing, or each integrated unit. Create a space that kind of reflects that demonstrates it in some way. And then the thing that you can do with Minecraft that you can't do elsewhere is really to invite other classrooms in to visit and have the kids give tours. Because when you have to kind of re-articulate what it is you understand, you kind of ingrain that learning even more deeply. So that social element of kind of touring and explaining and describing, I think would be really beneficial. So that's kind of my big grand vision.
Yeah.
And then every year, part of your portfolio is you take a copy of the world with you,
Yeah.
put it on your disc with your
Yeah.
essays and whatnot.
Yeah.
That becomes
It's
an
a
artifact.
very powerful reflection tool if you look at it that way.
Yeah. I think that go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just gonna say I wrote about this a long time ago, and I think we might have talked about it once, but saying that there needs to be server to school, or sorry, server to server portals. I know that there are plugins and there are mods that you can do, but they're not perfect. But what I mean is, as part of the game, you build a portal, and say like on the top of the portal there's a little IP address that you can add, and then when you walk through the portal you come out in the other server, and
Yeah.
you create. Oh, it just I mean we if we could create those. I mean, just on a school level, you could have a primary and secondary one. You know, you could have like year sixes. When they their ceremony where they go up to secondary, and then you can have portals from school to school, and that would just be unreal. I mean, just a
Yeah.
huge connected learning space for all these schools, connected by portals inside of a game. That'd just be unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it
that's
should.
very slick.
Yeah, I think it should be the next step. I think, we're still at early days, as I was saying in the last episode, it's still early days. It might seem like it's everybody's doing it right now, Minecraft and education, but to be honest with you, I don't think we've scratched the surface. I think we're just beginning to realize what we can do.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get out of the rain.
Okay. All right, let's get in another rain. You'll catch a cold. So yeah, so where do you see the future and with you and Minecraft and your students, Miles?
Well, I for sure want to connect, get online, and really exploit those social elements, because I think there's a lot of kind of simulating in terms of kind of social interactions that you could do in those space. That's kind of a safe space to experiment with and kind of let things go. Organizationally, you don't want to sound like you're just kind of throwing them into a space and letting them do what they want, but I think that's okay too. And I was talking to somebody a while back who said they had students in a space, and they had, over the course of the project they were doing, kind of evolved their own system of government and decision making. And when you can kind of deconstruct experiences like that, the kids are going to have a greater understanding of what's going on in the outside world, the physical world, and maybe understand things like what's going on in the Middle East, or relations between kind of North Korea and China and South Korea and the United States. So there's that part of it, I think, has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And I'd like to explore that a bit more. And for sure that Middle Ages project, where they can, we can set up areas of your fief that are kind of rich in some resources and poor in others, and kind of set up a scenario that requires trade and negotiations, and like ambassadors are almost to go from space to space, and set up alliances and strategic trading.
Yeah, and there's so many plugins that will actually facilitate that
Sure.
as well, like the trading, and I think there is a plugin that you can have different parties, right, Rob? I think I can't remember, but I think you can have like groups of people in one kind of, and you share the resources within that group. I'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah.
It's great to hear somebody making it work, but without everything in place. You're not in the most perfect of situations technically, but you're making it work, and so I think it's a great example to set for teachers around the world who may not have the facilities set up just yet.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'd like to say is that you don't need to be the expert. Like I'm not moving around much. I told you, Colin, I'm kind of clumsy when it comes to actually playing the games, so I don't kind of get in there and create as much. But boy, I get excited kind of walking behind a kid at the computer and seeing these amazing things they've made, or having them run up to me and say, look, I made this a working portcullis that uses pressure plates and redstone. I mean, I kind of get what the world can do. I get the possibilities, but I can't do it myself. I mean, I suppose I could, but the time, as far as the time goes, I spend my time thinking about how are we going to use this, how do we have to plan it out to make it work, and I'm talking about planning in terms of kind of making curricular connections and sequencing the program, setting the long-term and the short-term goals, and then how are you going to assess it and evaluate the work when it's done. So that's it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be the expert. You let the kids be the expert. Let them show it, and by tossing out the challenge, they often rise to the occasion. They always rise to the occasion when it comes to kind of
and
these
over and above
spaces.
in a lot of cases. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's nothing I like more. I mean, I think 80% of the conversations I have with students these days are about games, and they they'll come up to me. I mean, the youngest kids. I mean, even kids in year one. I mean, we're not even using
Right.
Minecraft really formally. We've got a little. We probably go into the classes where our primary tech integrator goes into the primary classes with a bunch of iPads, and he probably plays some Minecraft stuff with them. And I know they were doing it in year two. But they'll just walk up to me in the hall, or they'll walk up to me in the in the canteen. They'll be like, "Mr. Newberry, I made this thing, and I made this, and I made this," and then, and this they're just completely proud of what they've done. They're engaged about it. It's just yeah, it's a pleasure to have those conversations. Actually,
Yeah.
it's nice to have those.
There's a grade 1 boy who just came up to me and called me Mr. Minecraft Man last week, and I've never taught him it. He just knows that we use it with grade 3, and he's seen a couple of things in my room, and it's fun. It's fun to have and but I kind of I think it's very commendable that Miles, you self admit that you're not the big games kind of expert, and I think that's it's even more credible that teachers that may not be gamers at home are actually bringing this into the classroom, and I think that's fantastic.
Well, it's a different mindset, I think, to move your practice and your classroom engagement into a virtual space,
Yeah.
because it's it can feel a little vulnerable. You can feel a little vulnerable. What if the kids are putting up things that aren't perfect and aren't maybe the best quality work? But I think we're kind of getting to a point where that's okay, right? It's okay to be learning in public, learning in collaboratively, and that it's not all about finished product being published, but the process being visible, and inviting people to help you along that journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So I think we'll have you got any more points to make, Miles, or we can wrap up this episode.
Well, you know what? I've been trying to put together some resources for assessment, because I know when we first finished our first product, I thought, how are they going to hand this in? Because my inbox doesn't hold this stuff. But so as far as kind of assessment went, what I had the students do was create a video walkthrough, and so they toured me around the space and narrated what it is they wanted me to notice, pointing out to the criteria that they had met along the way. And then lately we've been kind of playing around with Minecraft Reality, where they can pull out that app where you can pull out your segments of the world and kind of project it.
Oh, yeah.
Place it on the table.
Yeah.
And they would hook the iPad up to the projector, and then they can kind of show without everybody having to sit at the computer. Because we're not networked, they have to kind of pull that world out in another way. So
how did that work out? Was that good?
It was fun. Yeah, it was really kind of a novel way of doing it. The students, though, they're not everything is intuitive. We think the kids are just have this innate sense of how technology works. But when the kid had put the world on the structure they had made on the counter, he was just kind of pointing at it, and I said, "No, you got to move around, explore it."
Yeah.
Because he didn't quite get that you could kind of walk around and see it from all different directions, different angles. But yeah, it's neat stuff, and if anybody's listening that thinks they can't do it because they don't know how, then let the kids show you.
Exactly.
They're pretty good at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure are. Well, thanks very much for your time, Miles. It's a great, every week. I say this every week, so I'm just going to repeat myself. But every week we get a different story, a different angle on using Minecraft in education, and this is another fantastic one that other teachers can learn from. Absolutely.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk with you two. It's terrific. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Colin.
No, thank you very much, and hopefully you'll get a server in the near future, and we can come on back in and see what your students have been doing.
Sounds good.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
All right. That's it for this episode. Thank you very much.